I'm Kim Klingler, the Executive Director of CPRO, and we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. In order to keep this an efficient meeting, we're going to go ahead and mute everyone who's not speakers. Please do use the chat function though. We've already had folks posting questions and comments in the chat. If we have time at the end, we will turn on mics, but please feel free to use the chat function. The presentation today came out of a few needs and concerned citizens, your community residents and your businesses who really wanted to learn more about what we are doing in Arlington to keep Arlington safe and to keep the Pike safe, especially during these COVID times. So I do want to thank our partners for joining us today, Arlington County, Arlington Police Department, and Virginia ABC and others. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today's program, we're going to keep it brief, 1 hour, so we're going to try to be as efficient and effective as possible. We're going to do some brief introductions, talk about overall crime in Arlington. Is COVID having an impact? We're going to talk about proactive and adaptive efforts, some specific challenges and incidents that have occurred along the Pike and what we are doing to manage them or to prevent them in the future. And then questions, answers, and discussion. This is your meeting. This is the community's meeting, so we definitely want to hear from you. Before I jump, can everyone still hear me? Yep, okay, just checking. Before I jump into today's speakers, I do want to go ahead and say thank you to the folks who have joined us on the Zoom. We have Adam Henderson, PPG President, Christy Sowert and Pete Durgan, who are Civic Association Presidents, Betsy France from ASPAN, County Board members, County Board Chair Libby Garvey and Member Katie Crystal, Commissioner of the Revenue Ingrid Maroy, State Delegate Alfonso Lopez, State Senator Adam Eben, Don Byers Representative Noah Simon. We also have representation from the Cherrydale and the Falls Church Volunteer Fire Departments, from APS, the Ethiopian community, and school board candidate David Pretty. So thank you to all of you and all others who have joined us today. And now I'm going to turn over the mic to Captain Linder to introduce today's speakers.
Thank you, Kim. Let me know if you guys can't hear me very well. Obviously, I have a mask on, but we appreciate you offering us to come out today and talk to everyone. Much appreciated. As Kim said, I'm Captain Scott Linder. I'm the captain of our Community Resources section. I've been employed with Arlington for just about 25 years. I recently was the lieutenant in charge of the home robbery section, and upon my promotion, I was allowed to be part of the Community Resources section. With us today, we have Acting Deputy Chief Darren Cassidy, who's in the room. He's off camera. He is the Acting Deputy Chief of our Operations section. Additionally, Captain Mike Rowling, who is in a different area, but he'll be on later. He is the captain of our business outreach, and we'll be talking about our Arlington Restaurant Initiative a little bit later. Lieutenant John Fedden, who's the current lieutenant and commander of the homicide robbery section, is here to talk about some of the higher profile cases and cases of interest along Columbia Pike over the last year or so. So he'll give a little bit of case updates about that. Officer Michael Keene, who's to my left, he is the person who runs and has developed our homeless outreach program, which is something we're very proud of, and was started earlier this spring, and it's really made a positive impact in the county with our homeless population and providing some necessary services to them. So he'll give a briefing about that. Then Ashley Savage, here to my right, is our public information officer. Also on the slide is County Manager Mark Schwartz, who I believe will talk first, if I'm not mistaken, and then Special Agent Barbara Storm from ABC, who with her and Captain Rowling will talk a little bit about Purple Lounge, and which is a big topic of concern for the Columbia Pike area. I understand we only have an hour. There's a lot to go over, and I'm sure we will not get to everything, and we probably will not be able to answer all the questions. However, if there are questions or if there's something we can't get to, we will get back with Kim and try and help answer some of that, or she can put it out later. So once again, thank you for your time, and we're happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Captain Linder. And as he mentioned, please go ahead and start putting any questions or comments in the chat. If we don't get to them today on camera, we will get back to you. We have had already folks submit comments and questions. So those are already in the chat for Captain Linder and his team. So before we go into the actual presentation for today, I do want to open up County Manager Mark Schwartz's mic to see if you have any opening comments or anything you'd like to speak to us about today.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you to everybody who's here. I just wanted to say a welcome. The less you hear from me, the better. We have a lot of information to go through, and I will be here for like the next 25 minutes and look forward to all your questions. And I want to thank Kim and CPRO for putting this all together. So back to you, Kim.
Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate it. And also big thanks to PPG and the community as well. So without further ado, let me go ahead and advance my screens. All right, Captain Linder, let me just know when you want me to change slides.
Thanks, Kim. You can forward to the first slide. So part of the questions Kim had asked is what kind of impact is COVID having on crime in Arlington? It's a very difficult question, but we tried to come up with some of the crime stats that might or we feel is related to COVID. So from the top, we did it in two ways. We did the overall county stats and then stats solely to Columbia Pike. We did not include all 10 civic associations, but we do have those stats. And if civic associations want us to present to them or talk to them or provide stats to their specific civic association, we can do that as well. So that's something for future if you want. We are doing meetings like this all over the county with many civic associations, and we're happy to do it. So counterfeit and forgery overall across the county is down 33%. On Columbia Pike, it's down 60%. Now, just to put that in context, Columbia Pike in 2019, we had 5 cases, and in 2020, we have 2. So it's not like there's a significant number, but it is down. Credit card or teller machine fraud is down 15% across the county, and 56% across Columbia Pike, which again, cases are 9 down to 4 from 2019 to 2020. Disorderly conduct is down 25% across the county. And then public drunkenness is down 28% across the county and 49% on Columbia Pike. And that's a little higher case number, 80 to 41. We feel this probably could be related, at least personally I feel this could be related to COVID, because less people are out at the bars, out drinking, and thus the police don't engage as much with them if they're at home. So if they're out in public, obviously it's more chance of getting arrested for being drunk in public. So that could have a positive impact that COVID's had related to arrest for drunkenness. Identity theft is up 84% across the county, and on Columbia Pike it's up 500%, and that's 1 report to 6 reports. Sex offenses are down 35%, and on Columbia Pike they're down 17%, and theft from buildings down 64% opposed to, and 44% on Columbia Pike, which would be 8 reports and 10 reports. A lot of these can be done. So we have a 30% increase in online reporting compared to 2019, which is something we've really promoted to have less contact with police to citizens and citizens to police to possibly spread the COVID. So any case that was able to be reported to our telephone reporting unit, we would do that. And that is probably why some of the identity theft is up in some cases, because how the citizen marks and codes the case in their online report would be where it's generated in our system, if that makes sense. However, overall crime across the county appears to be down about 3% and down 6% on Columbia Pike. So statistically, this year is not much different than last year. The next slide, Kim.
Hold on one sec. There we go.
Can you still hear me okay? Is it coming through okay? Okay. So higher profile crime stats. These are what we've heard, and to be honest, it seems like even from our perception, there seems to be more of this, whether it's factually, we'll see. Aggravated assaults are up 31% across the county and 78% on Columbia Pike. And that, again, that's 9 reports to 16 reports. Now, reference these cases. These are malicious wounding type events, something more than just a simple assault and battery. But in those 16 cases, 11 of them are closed, 10 with arrest and 1 exceptional. An exceptional means the person's been identified and it's either not prosecuted for certain reasons. They might be related to another case, or their prosecution might be declined by the victim or something like that. But basically, only 5 of the cases are still outstanding out of those 16, 11 with positive results. Motor vehicle theft is up 50% across the county and 600% on Columbia Pike. That being said, it's 1 report last year in 2019 and 7 this year. And one thing we've seen with motor vehicle thefts and thefts from vehicles is with the COVID, you've seen a lot of Uber drivers or food drivers, DoorDash, whatever you want to say, with a lot more delivery services. And when the drivers arrive on scene, they leave their cars unlocked and running, which is a prime opportunity for someone waiting to hop in the car and steal it. And that seems to be a primary method of and primary reason of why these thefts have gone up. Same thing, the theft from motor vehicles are up 25% across the county and 44% on Columbia Pike. Another thing our detectives have found is that cars are being left unlocked and keys are being left in vehicles, which obviously, if cars are locked, it makes it much harder to get into. We don't see a lot of cars getting broken into. Most of the ones that have had theft from the vehicles are unlocked vehicles. So that's a reminder. We'll get to that a little bit later about our 9 p.m. routine, just to ensure that cars are locked. The positive is Arlingtonians feel very safe, which is maybe part of the reasons why they don't lock their cars, but obviously it can lead to additional thefts. Robberies are up 20% across the county, 150% on Columbia Pike, which again, 4 reports to 10 reports. And 10 of those reported, 9 actually occurred between June 17th and September 5th. 5 of them have been closed arrest. And these stats are from last week. They don't cover the stats as of through the weekend, just as an FYI. Those are most of the just pertinent stats that I felt were pertinent towards Columbia Pike and related to COVID and some of the higher profile crimes. We have Lieutenant Fedden, who, if you go to the next slide, Kim, can talk about some of these cases of interest that are in and around Columbia Pike. So I'll yield to him.
And while we're waiting, Captain Linder, there has been some questions coming through about examples of identity theft.
Yes, someone asked if it was examples of like someone just using a stolen credit card, or if, because a lot of people are moving to doing a lot more things online these days, if that seems to be a more sophisticated hacking situation where these are coming from.
Yeah. I don't have those specific individual cases in front of me, but a lot of what I saw, especially when I was in homicide, is the fraud identity that type of thing, where someone would email a plan, send a citizen an email and say, whether it's we have your social security is bad, you get them over the phone too. There's a myriad of different ways they do it. They claim they have your internet or login code to Facebook or something like that, and want you to send some money via a gift card or something like that to Walmart or multiple different areas. That's I think, and Ashley may have a little bit more on that.
Yep, and I think these cases also include individuals who have their credit card information stolen online. And I also saw, Mike, that you also asked about whether or not, the larcenies from auto, if they're actually occurring more, people are more aware. I think it's probably a combination of both. We have been putting out a lot of information related to larcenies from auto through the police department, but also I think individuals are more connected through applications like Nextdoor. People are sharing information more. And I think with more people home, due to COVID, I think people have a little bit more time to report information to us. I think as we talked about, the number of online reporting is up, and so that helps us be able to track information.
I really appreciate that, Ashley. And I think, Lieutenant Fenton, we can now hear you. Go ahead and try one more time.
How does this sound?
Great.
We're good.
All right, so I had to switch to my headphones here. But as Captain Linder said, thank you all for taking the time out of your day to meet with us. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. I've been asked to talk about some of our more significant cases that have been reported along the Columbia Pike corridor. So let's start. If you're looking at the slides, we had a robbery of a business back at the beginning of September on the 5th, and it by all appearances it looked like it started off as a sort of a theft type shoplifting incident where the suspects came in and used rocks to smash and try to steal merchandise. And the reason that it turned into a robbery is because as the store employees tried to intervene, force was used against them, which then upgraded it to a robbery. And I think it's important, if folks aren't aware of this, you rob a person, you burgle a business. So there's for those of you that weren't aware of the specifics with that. But fortunately, officers were in the area, including Arlington and Virginia State Police that day, and we were able to quickly apprehend 2 of the 3. So in that case, there was an arrest. It is still an active investigation as we try to identify the 3rd person, but that did have a successful resolution. The next incident occurred at the ABC store in the 2900 block of Columbia Pike. And in that instance, officers were dispatched there for a disorderly subject. And upon contacting him, he became combative. And during the ensuing altercation, 3 of our officers received injuries, but were able to take the suspect into custody. He was, again, in this instance, there was an arrest made, and he was also evaluated for mental evaluation in that case. But that was pretty high profile in the sense that there was a really large police response, and the Pike itself was shut down for a short amount of time during that investigation. This next case was reported to us late, and so it took a while for our detectives to get in touch with the victim who was at the hospital. But that, by all indications, looked like it was a targeted attack. There was a misunderstanding between 2 groups, and that victim ended up receiving several stab wounds, and as a result was hospitalized. I am happy to report that case, the detectives have been working tirelessly on it, and we have made significant progress. So I expect in the very near future that case will be closed with an arrest as well. Can you switch to the next slide?
In just a moment, I'm coming right back with the slides.
All righty. So the next slide will give you some detail on what we've been dealing with at the Purple Lounge. And that particular establishment has contributed to a lot of why we're having this conversation today. In all fairness, not everything has occurred inside the business. They're just people that are associated with it as either customers or just happen to be in that area at the time. So while we wait for this slide to come up, obviously the most serious event that occurred there was a homicide that we had at the end of June. And that stemmed from an altercation between 2 groups. Again, it wasn't a random act of violence. It was specific to the two groups that were fighting. And it escalated to the point where, unfortunately, we had a victim that was shot and expired from his wound. But Again, my detectives were out there from the beginning. We were interviewing people, collecting evidence, went through hours of video, and as a result, we were able to identify and arrest 2 individuals who are currently being charged with first-degree murder. A couple months later, at the end of August, we had another shooting there. Again, it wasn't a random act. It was kind of stemmed from just something that, in my opinion, shouldn't have escalated into gunplay, but the security personnel were trying to clear the lot, and somebody took exception to that and retrieved a firearm, and shots were exchanged. The security guards were authorized and licensed to have firearms, and their actions that day, by all accounts, at this point at least, probably prevented further violence towards other folks. But in that case, we did make an arrest of the individual that instigated the activity there, and he is currently being held at the detention facility awaiting trial on that. And then most recently, which you'll hear a little bit more from ABC agents here coming up, as a result of the previous incidents we discussed, the Purple Lounge has been placed on restricted. There's certain restrictions that have been implemented that they have to abide by. And the other day, on October the 8th, our midnight officers were diligently conducting surveillance and were able to observe some illegal drug activity, and further investigation turned up another firearm. And again, this was in the parking lot, not inside the business. However, it was a violation of their terms that they had to abide by. And as a result, another 10-day suspension of their license, ABC license, went into effect this past week. So that is a kind of a snapshot of some of the more high-profile cases that we have been working on. I will say, compared to the rest of the region, Arlington is a very safe community. However, no matter where you live, and crime is always a possibility. And so I would just suggest to the businesses and any residents along the corridor there to just be attentive to your surroundings, pay attention to your surroundings, and make it harder for you to be a victim. And that's really what we're seeing in some of these cases. Robberies can start off as the intent is to perhaps, for example, steal somebody's cell phone as they're walking along and not really paying attention. However, once they make that physical contact by stealing it, it's classified as a robbery. And so that's why the FBI things can be a little bit deceiving, depending on how does a larceny turn into a robbery strictly by the contact, So in terms of the more serious ones where guns and knives and those type of violent weapons are used, we don't see a whole lot of those, fortunately. But I would suggest to people to just, make it harder to be a victim, protect yourself, pay attention to your surroundings. And when you see something that's suspicious, most importantly, we can't do our job without the eyes and ears of the community. So my big ask of everybody that's participating today is, we're here to serve you and we're here to help. So if you see something that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's what we're here to help you work through. So please do not hesitate to call the non-emergency number, and obviously 911 if it's a case of life or death. But we can't do this alone, and so that's why these meetings are so great, because collaboration is key for us to be able to create a safe and livable community. So I appreciate it, and thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. And if I don't have the answer, I'll get it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Fedden. Just to let everyone know, there has been a lot of questions coming up in the chat. Mark Schwartz did have to step away. I do think some of the questions will come up when we bring up the slide on the Purple Lounge. Captain Linder or Ashley, do you want to address any of the questions now, or do we want to move forward with the presentation?
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Lieutenant Fedden. We appreciate your time. Why don't we move forward, and if we can circle back on some of the questions. I think some might be able to be answered. I know Ashley just answered one in the chat. So one of the questions people ask is, we know there's crime, but what is the police doing or the community doing to help stop or prevent these crimes? And so you have proactive policing and you have reactive policing. Reactive policing would be a call-driven. A crime happens, a robbery happens at Columbia Pike. They call the police or emergency communication center, and they send the police. That would be reactive. Proactive is, what can we do to prevent them? Whether it's extra patrols, so you have a visible presence, and the goal of any police department is voluntary compliance. Part of the way to achieve voluntary compliance is to have a visible presence. People see the police. They may be thinking about committing a crime or a traffic violation. They see the police. They say, nope, we're not going to do it. They're voluntary compliance, and we do that from a visible deterrent. Other deterrence is a plainclothes or deterrent that's not so obvious, where they can be in the area where we have our crime analysts that actually look at crime, look for any pattern, and if they find a pattern, they'll let our plainclothes units know, and they may go sit in the area trying to identify and stop the crime either before or during when it happens, if that makes sense. So we use crime analysis to identify crimes and patterns, and we use both visible and non-visible deterrents to try and stop that. Other measures we do are outreach and engagement measures for proactive policing. And as you can see on there, we have the homeless outreach program, which Officer Keen's going to talk about in a second, the Arlington Restaurant Initiative, and crime prevention through environmental design. So that's kind of what brief some of the proactive measures we're going to talk about. If I can yield to Officer Keen and go to the next slide, he's going to talk about the homeless outreach program, which he's very passionate about, and the police department is very passionate about.
Thank you, Captain, and thank you all for participating and hosting our organization while we discuss these issues with you. So a big part of crime prevention is addressing the individuals who might have committed these crimes, and not all those things involve punitive measures or even charging someone criminally. One way that we can do that is to help prevent someone committing a crime by performing outreach and meeting their basic needs that may have contributed to those needs not being met and turning to crime. For example, if hunger is going to contribute to someone shoplifting from a grocery store, or if housing stability is going to contribute to someone participating in some crime that's going to help get them money, we can reach out to those individuals and we can find out ways that we can help them avoid turning to those means of providing for what they need. Another big part of that is mental health, and also making sure that these individuals are living a decent quality life and they have access to services. So one problem that other aspects of or other communities have is an aspect of siloed services. And in Arlington County, what we've tried to do collaboratively with the Department of Human Services, Adult Aging and Disability, our crisis intervention team, and ACPD, which is our homeless organization, is instead of having siloed services where we all work independently, we create a cooperative, we create a coalition to go out and address these mutually beneficial outcomes, hopefully, as we introduce these individuals to services. So we know that when individuals are not suffering from crisis and they're not having mental health problems, the likelihood of them committing a crime is much lower. So our officers that are trained in these aspects of outreach and crisis intervention can engage these citizens on calls. Let's say we're at a trespassing call that doesn't rise to the level of an arrest. The CVS wants someone to leave and they might be suffering from mental illness. We'll intercept that individual. We'll ascertain their level of compliance with services, and we'll encourage that individual to seek help with the Department of Human Services. So if that individual could get put in touch with food resources, if they can get put in touch with getting their prescriptions refilled for compliance with mental health medication, those things will foster the reduction of crime. And most importantly, a byproduct of reducing levels of crime is reducing conflict between businesses, residents, and the homeless. So that mitigation of conflict is a big benefit of performing outreach to the homeless. We've had more than 300 interactions with the homeless. We've had 2 Narcan saves with deployment of Narcan during overdoses. We have had more than 200 meals distributed to the homeless, as well as hygiene kits, which include hand sanitizer, masks, and other PPE items. And we've also participated and satisfied more than 40 referrals to housing. So a lot of big things are being done as it relates to homeless outreach, and our main goals are meeting their needs and mitigating conflict between members of the homeless community and businesses and residents along Columbia Pike and also in other areas. You might see some encampments along various places on Columbia Pike, maybe in a bus shelter or in an alley. We insert ourselves into those situations and we try to convince them to seek help and to meet with DHS, be assessed for housing, and be assessed for different services. Now, depending on the time and place, depending on the location, we cannot force those individuals to seek help. We have to convince them or cajole them to do so, and we often do that by going out with Department of Human Services and our partners at ACPD. Data and research shows that it's an average of 17 times before help is offered to an individual that they go ahead and accept help. So a lot of times these things aren't solved overnight, but they're solved by having an omnipresent participant with the police department and ACPD out there dealing with these individuals and showing that we'll consistently come by and attempt to offer them services. So please know that if you see an encampment, it's not something that we're ignoring. We could very, very much be working with that individual. If it's on private property, yes, that property owner or an agent to that property can ask for that stuff to be removed. But our goal is not just to remove these things. Our goal is to introduce them to services. So I'm a native of the West Coast. I'm acutely aware of the homeless issues that have struck my hometown of Seattle. With Amazon coming, with the cost of living being what it is, with housing instability being a fact of life in an area like this with a very challenging cost of living, we as a department decided to proactively address individuals who have hunger instability and housing instability, so we can go and introduce them to services and again mitigate that conflict between the businesses and the homeless population as well as residents.
So we have really had a lot of positive results in a short time. And one thing that people might fear is and be afraid to call police is they don't want to call the police on any of these individuals because they don't want them to go to jail, or so they may hesitate. But that's not what this program is about. This program is to find out the positive result and provide the services these individuals might need that can help them get on their feet or anything. So Mike's been a great champion of this cause, along with his partners from ACPD and other departments within the county. It's actually been very refreshing program. So he mentioned Narcan, and this isn't on our slide, but obviously opioids have been an issue for several years, and part of the fear of the COVID would people use opiates more for depression or just boredom, being home, or continued addiction. And just all of our officers, patrol officers, have been outfitted with Narcan. And I just asked Ashley, up to date, as of the middle of September, we've had 14 deployments of Narcan, which means we have 14 doses or 14 individuals who have received Narcan from the police department, all successful. So they were all brought back from potential death. So that's positive. Next will be Captain Mike Rowling, who will discuss the Arlington Restaurant Initiative, which is another program that was started several years ago, which has had positive results as well. And then once again, another proactive measure to help limit criminal activity.
Thank you, Scott. Can you hear me? We good? Okay. So as Captain Linder mentioned, this is a proactive initiative. I oversee our business outreach unit, which has a couple components to that. One of them is the Arlington Restaurant Initiative, which I'll talk about here in a second. The other one is the Business Safety Initiative, which we work with local business community on workplace violence prevention and methods to protect your employees, help provide sample draft policies and procedures for employees to follow in the case of emergency. For the Arlington Restaurant Initiative, this started about 3 or so years ago. Corporal Mastoris was somebody who you may be familiar with. He initiated this program, and it has had a lot of success. We have, as you see here, we partner with a bunch of different agencies. Some of those agencies are Virginia ABC, who is on this call as well, the Arlington County Fire Department, Department of Public Health, Victim Witness, our Fire Marshal's Office, Code Enforcement, and several others. So we've partnered together to work with the businesses, especially those who serve alcohol, in a mission and a goal of trying to reduce alcohol-related harm throughout Arlington County. We have a nightlife detail as well. We have a bar bystander program. We have another program called Ask for Angela, which is for individuals who maybe, a female or male could be in an uncomfortable situation at a bar and somebody is bothering them or making sexual advances to them. It's a program that helps them get out of that situation by working with the bartenders. We work a lot of special events. We champion the Sober Ride vehicle program to help reduce drinking and driving. But primarily what we try to do is we try to get all restaurants that serve alcohol. It's a voluntary accreditation program where we have an elevated set of standards that we try to get compliance with all these restaurants. And restaurants can do this, like I said, voluntarily on their own. If they do so and they're accredited, we issue them a certification, something that they can post on their door saying that they met a certain criteria, and that they're willing to work with the police to make sure that they provide a safe environment for consumers and patrons to visit. The benefits ARI, the overall safety of the customers, of the business and neighborhood residents in the area with nightlife. Obviously, we have a big nightlife area in Clarendon, but it's also expanded down on Columbia Pike and the Shirlington Village area, Crystal City and Pentagon City areas as well. And the Ballston area is starting to pick up. So we're starting to get a few more here and there. So we're trying to cover a little bit more ground. What our staff does is, I only have a staff of like 3 individuals, but they do a great job working with the community. They provide training. We train officers within our department to come out and answer questions as well. So we kind of do a train-the-trainer program. And basically what we're trying to do is just empower staff to increase safety and comply with the law to reduce liability. This is just one of our initiatives. Again, it's voluntary, but we try to encourage all restaurants or businesses that serve alcohol to comply with that. If you want to go to the next slide, we can lead this into the Purple Lounge, and I can talk briefly about that. But as you can see on the slide, and as Lieutenant Fedden has already explained, that the Purple Lounge obviously has had some activity, and my division, the Business Outreach Unit, Arlington Restaurant Initiative, work very closely with the ABC, and we're fortunate enough to have Special Agent Barbara Storm on this call with us. If you want to if you can unmute both of us at the same time, if you can unmute Agent Barbara Storm, that would be helpful. And then she can provide some more detail in reference to how her agency and the steps that they've taken and how they responded to the Purple Lounge incident and what the measures are in place. And then I can speak as to what the police department is doing, working with them to help ensure that they're complying with all the regulations. So Barbara, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Barbara Storm, the Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority. On August 30th, there was an act of gun violence in the parking lot at Purple Ethiopian Lounge. As a result of that incident, the Arlington County Police Department and Virginia ABC worked collaboratively to conduct an investigation that led to the execution of an order of summary suspension upon the company that owns Purple Ethiopian Lounge. That order of summary suspension remained in place until a formal hearing could be held. That formal hearing was held on September 15th. And as a result of that proceeding, a negotiated resolution and order was entered into with the licensee at this location. This negotiated resolution outlined 10 bullet points that the licensee was required to conform with prior to returning their wine and beer mixed beverage license to them. And so one of the two key points of this resolution that made this negotiated settlement unique is that the licensee agreed to surrender its mixed beverage license as revoked in the event there is another violation of the provision of this agreement or another incident of gun violence on the licensed premises, regardless of whether or not the licensee is at fault. The second provision of some importance is that if at any time the licensee is found to be in non-compliance with restrictions placed upon their license, they will voluntarily surrender the license for 10 days or until they can get back into compliance with the agreement. We had a scenario occur on October 8th that triggered that particular provision, in that they failed, as agreed to, they failed to have at least one security guard assigned to patrol and monitor their parking lot. After a collaborative investigation, it was determined they were not in compliance with this restriction. And on October the 9th, the licensee was served with a 10-day order of suspension, which they are currently still serving. That means they cannot sell, serve, or allow the consumption of wine, beer, or mixed beverages on their premises until at least October 19th, or until they are able to provide us with documentation that ensures us that they have hired the appropriate security personnel to conduct the appropriate monitoring and patrolling of the parking lot as agreed to in the original negotiated resolution. So it will be, their license will be suspended until October 19th. If they cannot provide documentation to ensure they are compliant with that provision, then the license will remain suspended until they can.
So from the police department, how we're enforcing this as well is we're working closely with ABC. I personally went down and met with the ownership and management of the Purple Lounge after they were being closed down, to let them know to reinforce, I guess, that when they did reopen, that we were actually going to be doing spot checks to make sure that they're in compliance. And as a result of doing some spot checks, some of our officers observed that violation on October 8th. And once that was observed and arrest was made, information was shared with ABC, and then Ms. Storm and her office were able to suspend their license for another 10 days. So what we're doing is we're continuing to do checks there proactively whenever possible. We encourage anybody on this call, if you ever have any concerns in reference to the Purple Lounge, if it's something that's happening at the time, remember the non-emergency number, or again 911 if it is an emergency, and we will happily respond. So that's it for now. I know there's going to be some questions. I think some popped up in the chat, so I don't know how you want to, if you want to continue and then get to those questions, or if you want to try to address some of those right now.
If I could interject for a minute, please.
Sure.
I did want to let everyone know that because the licensee has violated a provision of the initial agreement, when their license is returned to them, they will hold the privileges of a wine and beer restaurant license. Their violation of the provisions of the agreement means that they now surrender their mixed beverage license as revoked.
No, thank you for the clarification, Barbara. There have been a bunch of questions that have popped up in the chat, and I'm not sure who's best to address all of them. One of the big questions is, and maybe Barbara, you can speak to this, is how many times does a license have to be suspended before it is permanently revoked? I don't know if that's exactly the right question, but I tried to interpret.
In regard to this particular situation, we've had discussions with our legal department and with our Arlington County partners. If the licensee continues to fail to comply with the conditions agreed upon in the negotiated resolution, then we will file another request for a hearing based on their failure to comply with the board order. And at that hearing, the evidence will be heard and a decision will be made as to whether or not the wine and beer license should be revoked. Of course, any incident that involves gun violence will result in the automatic revocation of their wine and beer license. If they continue to fail to comply with the more minor conditions that have been placed upon them, which include a limitation in hours in which they can sell alcohol. They've agreed to close their business no later than 1 a.m. and not to reopen before 8 a.m. There are additional conditions regarding the hiring of security personnel outside of the monitoring of the parking lot, as I previously discussed. They also have provisions regarding maintaining a trespassing log, handheld metal detectors, and training their staff and personnel on how to deal with customers and the proper sale and service of alcohol. But in discussions with my legal department, to answer the question more specifically, another failure to comply with this order will result in the filing of additional charges. And then I can't speak to what the end result of that proceeding will be, but it will be sought with an effort to either have their license revoked or place additional conditions and restrictions upon them, which of course would be a decision made by the hearing officer.
Gotcha. And if there is another hearing, is there an opportunity for the community to be there and to testify in some capacity?
Yes, as was with the original formal hearing. Input from the community was very important and had a significant role in reaching the negotiated resolution. And so should circumstances dictate that another hearing be requested, then agents would reach out to folks in the neighborhood to determine who would like to offer testimony and who would want to be involved in the proceeding.
Barbara, if I may, you mentioned that gun violence would be an immediate revocation, and we have been asked for some clarification on what is considered gun violence, if that requires a gun to be discharged or if brandishing would qualify, et cetera. Could you just kind of qualify on what the ABC defines as gun violence in this situation?
Gun violence would require the discharging of the weapon. In the October 8th incident, we know that one of the suspects was in possession of a firearm. That did not rise to the level of action required by this restriction.
Okay, thank you.
We absolutely appreciate all the efforts that the county and the police and ABC are taking to keep our communities safe. I do want to ask if anyone from county staff or from the county board wants to make any comments or questions as well. I don't know, Takas, if you have any comments or questions.
Yes. Yeah, I think that, can you hear me now? Probably yes. I'm sorry I had to join relatively late in the comments. I there was an overlapping conflict on my calendar. What I want to say also on behalf of my colleagues, and also on behalf of reflecting also the attitude of and the action of our law enforcement officers, etc., that we are absolutely committed to restore safety in that block, specifically as we do all over the rest of the county. Now, you probably heard during this conversation where the limitations are, the legal limitations are. We very much hope that ABC is stepping up to the task and helping us in this. Actually, I heard from law enforcement that that they were pleasantly, impacted by the fact that the ABC reacted very fast to last Friday's or last Thursday's observation of violations, and that's a good sign. I believe somebody asked who owns the Purple Lounge. This is an individual. His name is Jorge Escobar. He lives in Falls Church, and unfortunately, and this is not the first time, even if the Purple Lounge folds, the same owner can, start again from scratch. And the way our legal system and the jurisdiction of our local government is built up, the place is zoned for a certain use. There's use as a restaurant, and anybody can, as long as they are compliant with the technicalities, so they can check the boxes they need for the initial licenses, the certificate of occupancy, etc. They can actually start again a business. And it can be a shifted business again. I remind you that the Purple Lounge is just the latest iteration on a very long series of shifted businesses there. So on our side, and I speak for myself right now, I think that surveillance has brought results. We will be constantly working with also with our Virginia delegation to see if we can obtain a better, a more effective jurisdiction for local government there. All my colleagues are asking the same. What can be done to give local government more latitude to submit, for example, the alcohol use to a use permit? Then we would have actually the leverage to close the place down if we have a reasonable reason to do that. And we are really exploring all avenues to do that, to get there. At the same time, we have to increase surveillance, and I believe that our law enforcement, Michael Rowling is here, is doing precisely that. Check very, very well with the neighborhood, being in contact, and make the place as safe as possible. I fully feel with the neighbors that are right now, the immediate neighbors specifically, that are so severely impacted by that. This is really, we understand that this is a huge problem.
So we've had some, thank you, Takas. We've had some really good comments in the chat right now about what levers can be pulled. And we do want to thank ACPD, the county, our state delegation, our constitutional officers who are all helping us try to find different ways to make sure our community is safe. We only have a few minutes left, but we are going to unmute a few folks in case they want to provide brief commentary. Christy, do you want to just say a few words?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Christy Sawert, and I'm the president of the Arlington Heights Civic Association, which is the location of the Purple Lounge. My question, and I would also like to echo thanks to Arlington County Police Department, who have met with our Civic Association, who've been very responsive, and we all appreciate that. And I just wanted to echo our thanks to you. My question is to ABC. I think our disappointment in the settlement was that a lot of us wrote letters into the county or different people, and we felt like through the settlement, our voice wasn't heard. And my fear is that there will be another incident that will, as the ABC officer said, will cause another hearing, but there's nothing keeping ABC or ABC's attorneys from settling again with Purple Lounge without the ability of neighbors to testify at a hearing. And my question is, if there's another incident that rises to the level of a hearing, what's going to prevent you from just simply entering into another settlement without the community input?
Hello. This hearing unfortunately was held in a COVID environment, and so the community members weren't able to sit in the small hearing room and listen as the discussions were ongoing. But I want to assure you that your letters and your emails and your interviews with the agents were introduced as evidence in the proceeding. They were made a permanent part of the record and will remain so. So your voices were heard at the proceeding. I share your concern, and I've been in continued conversation with our legal department. I feel like we've built a good rapport with our partners in Arlington County. I can't speak to what a final outcome might be at another legal proceeding because that decision isn't made by myself, but you can expect the support of this regional office, and you can also expect that your concerns will be brought forward to our partners in Arlington County, as well as provided to our legal department should it go to another proceeding. Based upon the conditions of this license that has this temporary license that has been issued with the restrictions attached, if it's another incident of gun violence, the decision has already been made to revoke that license. There won't be a need for another hearing. It's if they fail to conform with the loud music, the loitering, the closing of their hours, then it's only when they don't comply with those restrictions that we would have to request another proceeding. So if it is an incident of violence, the license will be automatically revoked per this negotiated resolution without another proceeding.
Thank you, Barbara. I do want to point to a chat that Katie Crystal entered, that right now ABC, I don't know, Katie, if you want to speak to it. Are you there?
Thank you both so much. It's funny, I was just conferring with Libby. We're like in some kind of science fiction situation where Libby is registered under my name. And so they're Katie Crystal talking to myself. In short, I'm really glad Libby's here though, and I think her answers are really helpful. I was just gonna briefly say, because I know one of the questions that came up in this chat and candidly has come up in a lot of emails to us is great frustration about why the county can't yank their business license, for example. And I know we've got the commissioner on the revenue with us who could speak to that. Why we couldn't force them to cease operating as a restaurant. And so, I think Takas put this well, but in short, unfortunately, our systems are set up to require, for example, that the building code is met before you award a certificate of occupancy, or standards for the business license related to how you pay your taxes are met. And my understanding is those things are actually set at the state level. We are very frustrated that none of those items have as a condition whether there is violence on the property or the establishment that you're operating, but it is the circumstance in which we find ourselves. And so we appreciate certainly CPRO for having this conversation so that we can direct our energies as a community towards this opportunity with ABC. And I think, again, as Takas put it well, I hope that we'll have an opportunity to expand the way Arlington County licenses businesses, enforces restaurants behavior, or even potentially in the future could help manage alcohol in order to be able to contend with these problems that are very local to me as a neighbor in Douglas Park, as well as to you all at the local level. So thanks so much for the opportunity, Kim. And Libby, thanks for posting such helpful comments under my name so that I can get credit.
I think they've unmuted me. I'm so sorry. I was late, and I think it's because of the link I got sent. So Katie, I'm sorry for impersonating you. And thank you. I think all the comments are great. You know, one of the issues with the purple Ethiopian too, which we can hopefully find a way to address with some legislation to give us more authority, is how close it is to actual residences where people live, their homes. A lot of bars and restaurants aren't like just, you know, back to back with a neighborhood like that. And that's one avenue we might pursue, but we've totally got to get more authority. Nothing is more frustrating than having the responsibility for the health and welfare of people and then no authority to actually protect those folks. And it's feeling a lot like that's where we are right now. It's very frustrating. I'm glad ABC, we've shut it down now, and hopefully they will continue to be very, very strict, because this has got to stop. I think, as Takas pointed out, though, the gentleman who owns it, you know, it's been a problem all the way along. So it keeps reoccurring with a different name and a different group of people. But the systemic problem, the underlying problem, which I believe is the owner, continues to stay there. And we've got to have better tools to deal with that. So sorry for all the mix up, and I'll now mute myself and turn off the camera and stop pretending to be Katie. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Libby and Katie. Really appreciate it. We are over time, and we could probably go on for a very long time. One silver lining out of this entire situation is we've had such productive conversations between the community, the businesses, our state delegation, our constitutional officers, the county board and county staff. And I have a feeling this is not going to be our first conversation. We're going to need to have follow-ups. So we will be reaching out to you with a copy of the presentation, with the recording from today. And I do want to turn it over to Captain Linder and to Ashley Savage to close us out.
All right, everyone, thank you today for your time. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about you know, what we're doing along the Pike and in Arlington County to help keep you safe. One of the things that we really want to stress is that, you know, we really have to do this through a partnership. We really can't do the work that we need to do without individuals like yourself taking the time to participate in events like this, to engage with us, but also to report information to law enforcement for investigation. So we really want to stress that, you know, if you see something, say something, report suspicious activity to law enforcement for investigation. One thing that we hear commonly is that individuals, you know, didn't want to bother us, didn't want to call it in. Our officers are out on patrol every day. We're in your neighborhoods. We do, you know, work in beats. So if you see something, like I said, please call us and we'll come out to investigate. Really quickly, do you want to talk about Ted?
One proactive measure we had talked about, and something we do and we offer free to citizens and businesses, is crime prevention through environmental design. It's basically a security or a safety survey where we will come out, if you request us, you can request us online, the link's at the bottom. We will come out, look at your business, look at your home, and evaluate and provide some safety measures, whether it's cutting bushes or surveillance or lighting or something like that, that can help you be a little more safe and maybe deter potential criminals from going to your residence or your business. One thing also we've done and been very successful is the surveillance on the businesses in and around Columbia Pike. That's been helpful in some of our investigations. So if you have questions about any of that, please contact us through that link and we can send someone out.
And at the end of the presentation, we listed a number of resources. So my office does create the daily crime report that's posted Monday through Friday. We also have an online crime map where you can put in your address. It will populate reported incidents near you. Please register for Arlington Alert. Those are free notifications from the county in the event of an emergency or serious traffic disruption. But there's also all of our contact information. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to any one of us and we'll help facilitate your questions. And again, we really appreciate your time. And Kim, thank you for hosting us today. We very much appreciate the partnership with CPRO.
Thank you so much, Ashley, Captain Linder, and team. Thank you, everyone who attended today. Thank you for staying on late. We did go over time. And believe me, we will be in touch and we will be continuing the conversation. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.